Are Americans just as prone to propaganda as much as we think citizens from China, Russia are? Propaganda works. That's why people do it. You are not immune to propaganda, nor am I, nor is anyone. Most Americans don't realize they're living under crazy amounts of propaganda lol. Yes, you are. American news is pretty much unwatchable to me. As an outsider, it's ridiculously obvious. Wherever you live, your government is lying to you. Just because Putin is lying doesn't mean Biden is telling the whole truth and vice versa. Every single person in power is lying to you to achieve their goals. Some might be doing it for the greater good. Some might be doing it to benefit themselves. They are not all equally evil. Have a healthy suspicion of everyone in power. Yes. And the problem is that the US is the reigning superpower. So your propaganda not only affects you, but a lot of people in the rest of the world. American propaganda is even crazier because unlike Russians or Chinese, they have uncensored access to the internet and therefore have all the means to see through it. Yet they still fall for it. If you don't think your country is making propaganda, that just means it's working. No one is immune to propaganda. Not just Americans. Literally every country's citizens are prone to propaganda. That's why populists win elections. Oh, 100% we live with propaganda. Read some declassified CIA documents and realize that they've never stopped functioning in that way. Yes, but people don't like to think of it as propaganda for some reason. They want to give it softer words or think of it as just mistakes being made. They have a hard time grasping that propaganda is not always this obvious over-the-top type of manipulation. Oh, bless you. You guys literally say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning at school and are taught you are the best country in the world. Just look at your news sources. They're full of misinformation and pro-US propaganda. The fact you don't realize proves that yes, you are susceptible to propaganda, as you haven't even realized it's rife in your own country. There is propaganda in the US, but it's not necessary by the government. There are a lot of competing interests trying to spin stories one way or another. One example I read last month. A 20-something Israeli soldier is described as a girl, while a 12-year-old Palestinian is described as a woman, or female. Nothing is untrue, but the words used can spin a story in a certain direction. In some ways, propaganda is more pervasive in democracies because A. there are more interests, B. the people have more power, so persuasion is more important. But as for outright lying, it should be relatively rare since getting caught in a lie is very damaging. But since Trump came on the scene, the game's been shaken up. The rules have changed. Americans are experts at shoveling propaganda down their throats like a fine steak dinner while simultaneously believing they're immune to it. Everyone can be prone to propaganda. The difference between China, Russia and the US is it's much easier for a totalitarian state to have a unified, unquestioned narrative. Nobody can say Western democracies have unified electorates. Americans are more prone to propaganda than anyone. Half of them still think anything they don't agree with is communism. One guy with a Twitter account and some of the most easily disprovable lies ever walked his way into the White House. 1,000,000% yes. 1/3 of Americans think vaccines are dangerous. FFS. Sorta. There is plenty of propaganda bombarding Americans. But it is false equivalency to say it's the same situation as China or Russia. In modern Russia and China, Not only does the state openly control the media, those governments also barely bother to pretend that they will vanish people who open their mouth. This creates an environment where the public not only has severely restricted access to any other points of view, the stick and carrot are right in their faces. So there's a lot of motivation to just go along with things. America certainly has large swaths of the public that just buy into certain lines. But the very fact there are different lines to buy into means all of the propaganda is somewhat weakened because there is competition that isn't centrally censored. In the US, the government is much less of a monolithic entity with one voice than in China or Russia. So it makes much less sense in America to talk about whether or not you can trust what the government says, because different parts will say very different things. Technically, Matt Gaetz is part of the government like Joe Biden. I think it's a challenge to find anything official those two would say that agreed.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.